This is Global Warming by Mitch, Meredith, Leroy, and Joel. Global warming has been a rising issue in the United States for the last century. One of the many factors that is affected by global warming is the rising sea levels, and that is the one we're going to focus on today. The main thing that is caused from global warming is the greenhouse effect, and the greenhouse effect is CO2 and a lot of other greenhouse emissions are released into the atmosphere. And what happens is it creates a layer that keeps the sun's rays from being reflected back into the solar system, and that leads to the overall temperature increase of the Earth. Although temperatures fluctuate naturally, the past century, the overall increase of temperatures has been rising, and it has been a record high in history. Scientists say that we need to take action to reduce the greenhouse emissions, or the average temperatures could be increased by 3 to 9 degrees by the end of this century. A couple major effects of the global warming on the sea level rise is, the first one is the melting ice, which is mountains, glaciers, and the ice caps, which obviously will increase the sea level because more water will be added to the ocean. And the second one that's a little less obvious is when water heats up, it expands, and when it's trapped between continents, the only place it has to go is up, which will increase the sea level as well. With global warming raising the sea level, it's going to have a big impact on the cities, coastal cities, their homes, the environment, and more importantly, the economy. Since the majority of the United States population is located on the coast, that is where it's going to have the biggest effect.
Hi, I'm Meredith, and I'm now going to be discussing the causes of global warming. One of the first things scientists learned is that there are several greenhouse gases responsible for warming, and humans emit them in a variety of ways, and Mitch kind of mentioned this earlier. Most gases come from the combustion of fossil fuels in cars, factories, and electricity production, which we use in our everyday life. The gas responsible for most warming is carbon dioxide. Different greenhouse gases have different heat-trapping abilities. Like Mitch said, will not allow the sun to be reflected out. Certain waste management and agricultural practices aggravate the problem by releasing other potential global warming gases, such as methane and nitrous oxide. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is fossil fuel burning. Coal burning power plants release enormous amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Over 40% of U.S. CO2 emissions come from electricity production, and burning coal accounts for 93% of emissions from electric utility industry. The next thing I'll talk about is gasoline from transportation. We use cars in every day of our life. Our use of cars and transportation of goods is responsible for about 33% of emissions in the U.S. With our population growing at an alarming rate, the demand for more cars and consumer goods means that we are increasing the use of fossil fuels for transportation and manufacturing every day. Next, I'll talk about methane emissions from agriculture. Methane is another extremely potent greenhouse gas, ranking right behind CO2. When bacteria under oxygen-starved conditions break down organic matter, methane is produced. The process also takes place in the intestines of herbivorous animals, and with the increased amount of concentrated livestock production, the levels of methane released in the atmosphere is increasing. Next, I'll talk about the Arctic seabed. Another source of methane is methane clathrate, a compound containing large amounts of methane trapped in the crystal structure of ice. As methane escapes from the Arctic seabed, the rate of global warming will increase significantly. Here you can see a figure that will illustrate this. Finally, I'll talk about deforestation. The use of forests for fuel, such as wood and charcoal, are causes of deforestation. Forests remove and store carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, like we discussed in class many times. And this deforestation releases large amounts of carbon, as well as reducing the amount of carbon capture on the planet. Now that we have discussed the main components leading to global warming, I'll turn it over to Leroy to affect global warming has on the coast.
Hi, my name is Leroy, and I'm here to talk about the effects of the coast. Coasts are highly vulnerable to extreme events such as storms, which impose substantial costs on coastal societies. Annually, about 120 million people are exposed to tropical cyclone hazards, which killed about 250,000 people from 1980 to 2000. Through the 20th century, global rise of sea level contributed to increased coastal flood, erosion, and ecosystem losses, but with considerable local and regional variation due to other factors. Coastal wetland ecosystems such as salt marshes and mangroves are especially threatened where they are sediment-starved or constrained on their landward margins. Degradation of coastal ecosystems, especially wetlands and coral reefs, has serious implications for the well-being of societies dependent on the coastal ecosystems for goods and services. Increased flooding and the degradation of freshwater, fisheries, and other resources could impact hundreds of millions of people, and socioeconomic costs on coast will escalate as a result of climate change. Global warming has major impacts to the following. First off is damage to property and infrastructure. Sea level rise, floods, droughts, wildfires, and extreme storms require extensive repair of essential infrastructure, such as homes, roads, bridges, railroad tracks, airport runway, power lines, dams, levees, and seawalls. Lost productivity. Disruptions in daily life related to climate change can mean lost work and school days and harm trade, transportation, agriculture, fisheries, energy production, and tourism. Several rainfall events and snowstorms can delay planting and harvesting, cause power outages, snarl traffic, delay air travel, and otherwise make it difficult for people to go about their daily business. Climate-related health risks also reduce productivity, such as when extreme heat curtails construction, or when more potent allergies and more air pollution lead to lost work and school days. And finally, mass migration and security threats. Global warming is likely to increase the number of climate refugees, people who are forced to leave their homes because of drought, flooding, or other climate-related disasters. Mass movements of people and social disruption may lead to civil unrest and might even spur military intervention and other unintended consequences. And coping costs. Societies may find ways to prepare for and cope with some climate impacts, provided that we do not let our carbon emissions continue unabated. However, even a partial accounting of these measures suggests that coping is likely to be more costly steps to reduce carbon emissions, thereby reducing associated climate impacts. Now we'll turn it over to Joel to present possible solutions to global warming.
Hello, I'm Joel. I'm going to talk about solutions. There is no one solution to global warming. However, there are many steps we can take to reduce the factors of global warming. The first step is to boost energy efficiency. The energy used to power, heat, cool our homes, businesses, and industries is the single largest contributor to global warming. Energy efficient technologies allow us to use less energy to get the same or even higher level of production and comfort. Next, greener transportation. The transportation sector has increased at a rate faster than any other energy-using sector over the past decade. A variety of solutions are at hand, including improving efficiency, which is miles per gallon, in all modes of transport, switching to low-carbon fuels, and reducing vehicle miles traveled through smart growth and more efficient mass transportation systems. Next is revving up renewables. Renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal, bioenergy are all available around the world. Multiple studies have shown that renewable energy has the technological potential to meet the vast majority of our energy needs. Next is phasing out fossil fuels. Dramatically reducing our fossil fuels, especially carbon-intense coal, is essential to tackling climate change. Next is managing the forest and agriculture. Taken together, tropical deforestation and emissions from agriculture represent nearly 30% of our world's heat-trapping emissions. We can fight global warming by reducing emissions and deforestation and forest degradation, and by making our food production practices more sustainable. Lastly is the sustainable development. The countries of the world, for the most developed and the least developed, vary dramatically in their contributions to the climate change, and their responsibilities and capacities to comfort it. A successful global compact on climate change must include financial assistance from richer countries to poorer countries, and to help transition to low carbon development pathways to help adapt the impacts of climate change.